It's one of the most beloved musicals ever made. It's also a film in which the oldest cast member playing a high school student was 33 years old. The original stage show was about gang violence, and the ending has been debated in film studies classrooms for 40 years. That was Grease, a film that arrived in 1978, made $395 million on a $6 million budget, and turned out to be considerably stranger behind the scenes than anything happening at Rydell High. Today, 15 facts about Grease, from the casting decisions that nearly gave us a completely different Sandy and Danny, to the song written overnight that became the film's biggest hit, to the bonus that reframes the ending in a way you may not have considered. Stick around. Fact 1. The original stage show was nothing like the film you know. Before Grease became a feel-good musical about summer love and leather jackets, it was considerably darker. The 1971 stage production was set in working-class Chicago, not sunny California, and dealt seriously with gang culture, teen pregnancy, and grinding social pressure. It was raw, occasionally crude, and deliberately unglamorous. By the time Paramount adapted it for the screen, the Chicago setting had been softened into a generic California backdrop, the darker social commentary removed, and the tone shifted from gritty period piece to bright, nostalgic fantasy. The transformation was intentional. What they made was a version of Grease that the original writers barely recognized. Fact 2. The cast was considerably older than the characters they were playing. The casting of adults as teenagers in Grease was comprehensive enough to function almost as a production policy. John Travolta was 23 during filming. Olivia Newton-John was 29. Stockard Channing, who played the teenage Rizzo, was 33. Jeff Conaway was 26. The average age of the main cast playing high school seniors was somewhere in the late 20s. The production dealt with this in the most straightforward way available. It simply didn't draw attention to it. The sets were scaled slightly large, the performances leaned into youthful energy, and nobody looked directly at the camera. Channing in particular was old enough to have been teaching the students her character was attending school with. Fact 3. Olivia Newton-John almost turned Sandy down, and her reason was completely sensible. Newton-John's hesitation about the role was specific and practical. She had never made a major film before, and was worried about whether she could carry a leading role. Her deeper concern was more interesting. She wanted to do a screen test with Travolta before committing, to make sure their chemistry would actually read on camera. This was a completely sensible request, and it turned out to be the right call. The test worked. The chemistry was unmistakable, and Newton-John signed on. Her instinct to verify the chemistry before committing is also, in retrospect, the reason the film works at all. Fact 4. Henry Winkler turned down Danny Zuko to avoid being typecast. Before Travolta was cast as Danny, the role was offered to Henry Winkler, who was playing Arthur Fonzarelli, the Fonz, on Happy Days. Winkler was the most prominent leather jacket-wearing figure in American popular culture at that exact moment. He turned it down. He was concerned about being typecast and didn't want to spend his film career playing variations of the character that had made him famous on television. The decision left the role open for Travolta, who had just come off Saturday Night Fever and was at the peak of his commercial appeal. Winkler avoided the typecast trap. Travolta got the role that defined his era. Fact 5. The film's biggest hit was written in a single day and wasn't in the original show. You're the One That I Want wasn't part of the stage production at all. It was written by John Farrar specifically for the film, composed in a single day after producer Alan Carr decided the existing songs weren't providing a strong enough commercial centerpiece for the film's climax. The song went on to reach #1 in multiple countries and spent 9 weeks at the top of the UK charts. It has sold over 15 million copies worldwide. The song that defined Grease as a cultural phenomenon was written in 24 hours for a film adaptation of a show it had never been part of. Fact 6. Sandy was supposed to be American, until they cast an Australian and rewrote the character. The character of Sandy Olsen was originally written as an American girl, wholesome, the girl-next-door archetype the film needed as its emotional center. Olivia Newton-John is Australian. Rather than ask her to suppress her natural accent entirely, the production made a simpler and considerably more elegant decision. They rewrote Sandy as an Australian exchange student spending the summer in America. The rewrite solved the accent problem instantly. It also added an extra layer of logic to Sandy's outsider status at Rydell High. She isn't just from the wrong social circle. She's literally from another country. Newton-John's Australianness, which had initially seemed like a casting complication, was absorbed into the character, and became part of what makes Sandy's fish-out-of-water dynamic work. The studio's concern became the film's solution. Fact 7. Olivia Newton-John had to be sewn into the leather outfit at the end. The black leather outfit that Sandy wears in the film's final sequence was so fitted that Newton-John couldn't get into it through conventional means. The costume was applied to her body and literally sewn shut around her on the day of filming. Moving in, it required genuine physical effort beyond what the audience sees. The outfit has become one of the most iconic costumes in film history, replicated, referenced, and parodied continuously since 1978. The physical experience of wearing it was considerably less glamorous than the cultural mythology surrounding it. Fact 8. The film was made for $6 million and earned $395 million worldwide. Grease was not a major studio gamble. It was made on a modest budget, based on a stage show that had been running since 1971 in a genre, the film musical, that Hollywood had largely abandoned. Expectations were reasonable rather than enormous. What happened was one of the most extraordinary returns in film history. Grease earned $395 million worldwide on its $6 million budget, a return of roughly 65 times its cost. It became the highest-grossing film musical of all time at that point, a record it held for decades. A stage show about gang violence turned into a sun-drenched fantasy, a cast averaging almost 30 years old playing teenagers, a #1 hit written in a single day that wasn't in the original show, and a lead actress whose accent was such a problem that they rewrote the character to be Australian. We're not halfway through. Still coming, the real school that still draws visitors, the audition that took 4 attempts, and the bonus that reframes the film's most debated moment in a way you may not have considered. Fact 9. Rydell High was a real school, and it still exists. The fictional Rydell High was filmed at Venice High School in Los Angeles, a functioning school at the time and still operating today. The exterior, gymnasium, and several interior locations appear throughout the film in largely unmodified form. Venice High School has become one of the most visited filming locations in Los Angeles for fans of the film. Students attend classes in a building that has been part of one of the most successful film musicals ever made, a specific kind of institutional celebrity that most schools don't share. Fact 10. Stockard Channing auditioned 4 times before getting Rizzo. The role of Betty Rizzo, sharp, cynical, complicated, and arguably the film's most interesting character, was not easily won. Channing auditioned 4 separate times before producers were satisfied. The repeated auditions reflected genuine uncertainty about whether an actress most audiences hadn't heard of could carry one of the film's most demanding roles. Channing's performance became one of the most acclaimed in the film and launched a career she has sustained for decades. She was 33 playing a teenager, and she remains the most convincing person in the film. Fact 11. The drive-in scene was filmed at a real cinema in Burbank that was demolished a decade later. The drive-in sequence was filmed at the Pickwick Drive-In in Burbank, California, a venue that had been operating since 1949 and was also the site of the world premiere of Blazing Saddles in 1974. It was a genuine, functioning cinema with real history before Grease ever arrived. The Pickwick closed in 1989, a victim of the same forces that shut down drive-ins across America: rising land values, the spread of home video, and the rise of multiplex cinemas. It was demolished shortly after closing. The sequence in Grease is one of the last records of it as a working venue. A drive-in that hosted a Mel Brooks world premiere ended its life as a filming location for a John Travolta musical and then disappeared entirely. Fact 12. A fully produced song was cut from the film but appeared on the soundtrack album. Grease was originally longer, and the editing process removed at least one fully produced musical number. Alone at a Drive-In movie was cut from the final film but appeared on the original soundtrack album, a complete song that never made the theatrical version. The soundtrack became one of the best-selling albums of 1978 regardless, which meant the cut material found its audience through a different medium than the one it was made for. The album and the film coexisted as slightly different versions of the same story. Fact 13. The actress playing Cha-Cha filmed the race scene through a medical emergency. Annette Charles, who played the scene-stealing Cha-Cha in the Thunder Road drag race sequence, was suffering from a painful ectopic pregnancy during filming. She delayed seeking medical attention in order to complete the scene. Her doctor eventually cleared her for the shoot, but the pain was real and ongoing. If you watch the Thunder Road sequence carefully, Charles can be seen leaning against cars throughout. Not as a character choice, but because standing upright was genuinely difficult. She finished the scene. She then got the medical attention she needed. The performance that audiences remember as effortlessly cool and confident was delivered by someone who was in genuine physical distress for most of it. It is one of the more quietly extraordinary pieces of professional commitment in the film. Fact 14. The film was released as a double feature with Saturday Night Fever in some markets. Paramount released Grease and Saturday Night Fever as a double feature in some international markets, recognizing that Travolta was the commercial engine connecting both. The programming gave audiences two of the defining films of the era in a single sitting. The double feature framing is a useful reminder of how different the two films are, despite sharing a star at the peak of his appeal. Saturday Night Fever is a genuinely dark film about aspiration, class, and violence. Grease is a fantasy. That the same person anchored both in the same year is one of the more remarkable achievements in 1970s popular cinema. Fact 15. The ending was reshot after test audiences rejected the original conclusion. The film's ending was different from what reached theaters. In an earlier version, the resolution between Sandy and Danny was less emphatic, less transformative, less committed to the visual spectacle of Sandy's leather-clad arrival at the carnival. Test audiences wanted a bigger, more conclusive payoff. The production responded by reshooting and expanding the ending, amplifying the transformation sequence, and committing more fully to the fantasy register the film had been building. The ending that generated decades of debate about female identity and self-transformation was itself a commercial response to audience feedback. The version that sparked the conversation was made to give people what they said they wanted. And now, the bonus I've been saving for last. The ending of Grease, Sandy transforming herself to win Danny's love, has been debated for 40 years as a problematic message about women changing themselves for men. Here's the other way to read it. Danny Zuko, in the same sequence, shows up wearing a Letterman sweater. He has joined the track team. He has changed himself, his appearance, his social identity, his peer group, to become the kind of person he thought Sandy wanted. He gets there first. Sandy's transformation in this reading isn't capitulation. It's a response to a boy who already moved. She's not becoming someone else to get him. She's meeting him in the middle, arriving at a version of herself she has chosen on a day when he has already made the same kind of move in the other direction. The film doesn't make this explicit. It doesn't need to. The ending works as fantasy precisely because both of them changed, and the film only asks you to notice one of them doing it. That's either a flaw or a feature, depending on how you want to watch it. It's been both for 40 years.